All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Delayed Offside. As you can see, I am back this week. Me and Pilon, we were out. We had some contract negotiations going on, and
don't get paid
part
enough.
of my yeah, exactly right. Like Adam and Baron, they were kind of taking all the money, the salary cap. We had to restructure.
Honor and Draisaitl.
We had to send Baron back to the taxi squad, so he's not here today. I called me and Pilon up.
It's all right. He won't get picked up on waivers.
He's looking to join another podcast, but it's an all Leafs podcast, and I kind of would like to see that, but hopefully for his sake, he doesn't get picked up. Before we begin this episode, I wanted to do something a little bit fun here, and Patrick Marleau, longtime San Jose Shark, short-time Leaf, even shorter time Pittsburgh Penguin. He's closing in on a record that at one time we thought it was unbreakable, and that's Gordie Howe's most games played in a career. And he might do it this year, if not maybe next year. But this is something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. So I asked you guys to come up. What are some records? NHL records, could be anything. And what's one of those records that you think you guarantee will never be broken in your lifetime? And the one caveat was no Wayne Gretzky records, because there's a ton of records of Wayne Gretzky that we could be here all day just talking about the records that will never be broken for Wayne. So I'll let you guys think of that just to get the ball rolling and get started. I'll throw out one, and I'll take it back to my Calgary Flames. Take it back to 1991. A spry little short kid named Theo Fleury. He scored a hat trick. And you might be thinking, okay, he scored a hat trick. That's not a record. People do that all the time. All three goals were shorthanded. He got one goal shorthanded. 8 seconds later, on the same power play, he got another shorthanded goal. And then in the third period, he got a third shorthanded goal. So I think that's something that I don't see anybody in NHL history getting 4 shorthanded goals in one game. Like, to me, that's just such an incredible achievement that is kind of just lost out there. People don't recognize enough. So for me, that's one of them. Pilon, Adam, you want to throw one of them out?
Sure, I'll go to my Leafs. I'll go 1976, Darryl Sittler, 10 points in one game against the Boston Bruins. I don't see that ever happening again. Number one, you just don't have goal scoring like you do back in the 70s. And number two, I don't think a team, if you're up by that much, I don't see a team continuing to pour on the goals, right? Like we just saw the New York Rangers win 9-0. Was it 9-0? 9-0, right? And Zibanejad had like 6 points just in the second period alone. In that third period, they just decided to play defense for the most part. So, I just don't see that ever happening again.
Right. And mine is a little bit different, but it is a record that Andrew Cogliano and Nathan Horton both hold, and it is being an overtime hero, so scoring the overtime goal in 3 consecutive overtime games, or games that went to overtime. So I think that's just too hard to do, and I think players that could do that would be Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, a great 3-on-3 overtime tandem, but not many of their games have gone to overtime. None this year have gone to overtime. None.
Wow, that surprises me.
Yeah, so like there's that. And then the other one I know Baron had shared with us is the fastest goal, 5 seconds, and that record is held by Doug Smale of the Winnipeg Jets versus St. Louis Blues at Winnipeg on December 20th, and by Brian Trottier for the Islanders versus the Bruins, March 22nd, 1984. I was 2 years old, guys. And Alexander McGillney from, and in brackets, Russia for the Buffalo Sabres versus the Toronto Maple Leafs at Toronto, December 1991. Ooh, 5 seconds in. Good D, eh?
91, yeah. I don't think that was quite the Greg Gilmore years yet.
Yeah, he was still slumming it in Calgary, I guess.
Yeah.
I got a couple more. How about this one? Patrick Waugh, greatest playoff goalie of all time. he has 151 playoff wins. Now, to put that in context, that's just like incredible. Like Marc-Andre Fleury is the current leader for wins. He has 81. So for Marc-Andre Fleury to break that, he would have to win 4 more Stanley Cups and then play on another 5th year and win some more games. Like 151 wins is a total amount of games that Grant Fuhr played in his entire playoff career. So like that's just something that will never even be touched, especially in today's day and age where goalies, tandem goalies are more popular and going deep every year, like Patrick Waugh did, like with Montreal as a rookie and then going to Colorado. Every year they were either like conference finals, Stanley Cup finals, even like, very rarely was he out in the first round. He was making playoffs every year and going deep. So that's something I would stake a claim on that will never be broken in my lifetime.
No, especially with Marc-Andre Fleury. Like he's got 3 Stanley Cups, and think about that 3rd cup run. He was forgotten. 2nd round, got them through to the first round. Like he won that round for them. And then Matt Murray comes back and they virtually win it without Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So before we start, I'm going to do one more, and this is for the Leafs fans and the Canadian fans out there. Between 1962 and 1969, 8 straight times a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. And, I don't think that'll ever be touched again. Like 8 straight Canadian teams. They came close in the 80s. From 84 to 1990, 7 straight Canadian teams won a Stanley Cup. But I don't think we'll ever get to 7 or 8 again. Like it's been 27, 28 years since one Canadian team has won it. I just don't see it happening 7 or 8 times. Like that's just incredible.
Well, see Connor Draisaitl.
They're gonna get traded down south in a couple of years.
Oh
so don't worry
no,
about
God,
it.
I'd be so pissed off. Oh my God, I'd be so mad.
It's so much harder nowadays too to have a franchise win multiple cups, a dynasty, right? It's with the salary cap era. It's so hard to have a dynasty nowadays. Like you look at the 70s, like, it's just owned by Montreal, 80s owned by Edmonton, Detroit, for a while there. Like Chicago, they called it a dynasty because they won, 3 cups in, was it 6 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you can argue that there were a couple modern age dynasties with Chicago, LA, and Pittsburgh.
You could argue it, but it wasn't the same as the kind of dynasties. Like those were teams that were dominating for decades, and they would win 3-4 Stanley Cups in a row.
And that's what the salary cap has done.
And that's exactly at the parity, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Good discussion, boys. Let's kick off this episode with that amazing theme song.
You know what? I'm going to keep that in.
Yeah. Good.
All right. So, we touched on a little bit of Canadian teams, winning the Stanley Cup, and we touched on Chicago and their dynasty. I stumbled upon this article when I was perusing Twitter, and NHL.com put out a list of their MVP candidates, or who should win the Hart Trophy. And they asked some reporters who should win. So I'm like, oh, great. Another article saying Connor McDavid's going to win the Hart Trophy. Like, as a Flames fan, do I even click on it? Like, what's the point? But I'll see who else is up there. Who's second place, right? I was like, who's going to be in second place? I scroll up and I look, and they have Patrick Kane leading the Hart conversation. Like, I no disrespect to Patrick Kane, Hall of Fame player, great player, having a great season. The Blackhawks are performing well above expected. But this has got to be Connor McDavid's trophy, right? Like, this thing is already wrapped up and it's halfway through the season. Am I not wrong? Like, what do you guys think? Is Patrick Kane have a stake in this?
He's got 18 points on Patrick Kane right now. And then to think that Draisaitl's not even in that conversation, and he's got 10 points less than Connor. Connor's running away with this. They've played like 35 games, and he's got 60 points.
I'll play
It's
devil's
ridiculous.
advocate. I'll play devil's advocate.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So the
So
problem
Austin
is
Matthews is scoring 21 goals with a broken hand.
I'm going to tell you why they have Patrick Kane leading the Hart Trophy race. It's because the Hart Trophy doesn't go to the best player in the NHL. It goes to the player judged the most valuable to your team. And so that's what the Hart Trophy is. That's the definition.
Yeah.
And so what's hurting Connor McDavid, or at least in terms of those votes, doesn't mean he won't get it, is the fact that McDavid or Draisaitl is second in points, and he has more help than just Draisaitl too. Tyson Barrie's leading all defensemen in points. Mike Smith's having an amazing year. So yes, Connor McDavid is the best player. Yes, he's leading the league in points by a long shot, but is he more valuable to his team than Patrick Kane is to the Chicago Blackhawks? And the reason Kane is going to get points or going to get votes is because he is leading that team into the playoffs right now, a team that no one expected to be in the playoffs, a team without Jonathan Taves and Doc and a bunch of other players. It's just basically him and a bunch of rookies. Alex DeBrincat is like the closest next to him.
That's what I was going to say. He's got 31 points, 16 goals, and 15 assists in 28 games played. That's nothing to slouch at.
No,
and that sounds like
great
supporting scoring.
But he's in like the top 20. He's not in the top 10 in points like Draisaitl and McDavid are 1 and 2, right? You take McDavid out, you take the McDavid off the team, you still have Draisaitl, who can lead a line and lead a team to victories. Can DeBrincat do that? I'm not too sure. There's a bigger separation between him and Kane than there is between McDavid and Draisaitl. So that would be my argument as to why they're saying Kane. Now, do I agree with it? No, I think it's stupid. I think the NHL always makes things way too complicated.
Yeah.
Redo the whole definition of what the Hart Trophy is. Just give it to the MVP of the league. Give it to the best player, right? But no, they have to make things complicated. They have to say who's most valuable to their team. And then there's a whole debate as to who, is it the best player? Is it, this guy because he brought a non-playoff team into the playoffs? And then there was the years when McDavid didn't make the playoffs, or the Oilers didn't make the playoffs. McDavid should have still won it, but because the Oilers weren't in the playoffs, how valuable was he really if, they didn't make the playoffs? It's stupid. It's ridiculous. But that's the definition. That's why there's going to be a debate.
Well, I saw that and I laughed. I was like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. So
to be honest, I find the Ted Lindsay trophy is the more meaningful trophy, right? The one that all the players are voting on in terms of who they think is the best player in the league. I think that's a lot better than a bunch of riders deciding it in a room. But and plus, Ted Lindsay's actually going to like who they view as the best player, right? They're not doing the technicalities around it, or a writer isn't like, well, I shouldn't vote for this team because I'm the sports writer for that team, or there's all the politics involved with it too, and it just gets way too convoluted and annoying in my view.
Yeah, I feel you, Van Ginla. I think still to this day lost the Hart Trophy to Jose Theodore because Montreal made the playoffs and Calgary didn't, but Ginla was head and shoulders above any player that year, and it still bugs me to this day. So I always feel like your team doesn't make the playoffs. You take a Ginla, for example, or McDavid, they're only on the ice for 25 minutes a game, right? Like a goalie's out there for 60 minutes, so they can affect the outcome more. So I think best player for sure should get it. Do you guys think there's maybe a bias because we're having this Canadian division? Maybe U.S. writers aren't really looking and watching the Canadian teams play, because there's 23 American teams, only 7 Canadian teams, only 7 Canadian voters or writers is my understanding, is 1 for each team. I could be wrong on that, and maybe I am, but do you think there is a little bit of a U.S. bias on this?
That's the only excuse that I can think of for such a ridiculous poll.
I'm not sure if there's a bias, although I do wonder if, because, if McDavid had won it before, I mean, he didn't win it last year, Draisaitl won it, but okay, do we want to give it to another guy in Edmonton? Or, do we want to keep it fresh? Do we want to give it to someone new, give some love to another team, do something different? Everyone's going to pick McDavid, but I'm, the smart writer. I'm going to, look into the real definition and pick someone else or go off the board. I don't know. Who knows? But I'm not sure if there's an American bias.
Well, I think there's not maybe necessarily American bias, but I think there's a big city bias. You look at Patrick Kane, he's doing it with Chicago, a huge market. You go look at Florida, they're outperforming every projection. And, Barkov wasn't up there, or any of their players, Huberdeau wasn't up there. So I think, and McDavid plays in, Edmonton, which is a big market in Canada, but in the States, it's not a big market. So to me, I don't think it's a U.S. bias. I think it's just a big city bias. Like, I think if McDavid was doing this in Toronto, he would probably be leading this race 100%.
Well, I don't know if that's true, because I actually think there's a bias because there's a lot of the sports writers are from Toronto.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of times they choose not to vote for the Toronto player because they don't want to be viewed as biased. Personally, that's how I feel. I mean, look at how many Toronto players have won individual awards over the years. It's not a lot.
But is there any example that you could say Curtis Joseph should have won the Vezina or something, or is it just this franchise just hasn't had elite talent since
that's probably a good point.
Now that every Toronto person hates me.
That's probably
not to throw shade. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to win an individual award. The Flames have been around for 40 years, and they've only had one person win the Vezina and one person win the Norris, right? And so,
you've got Marner with 40 points. Why isn't he in that conversation? Why wasn't he second to 42-point Kane?
I think you're only going to have, again, because of the definition, the most valuable player to a team. You can't have two most valuable players to a team. So you have to pick and choose, okay, is it McDavid or is it Draisaitl? Is it Matthews or is it Marner? Who is more important to their team?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In the top six, only one is from an American market, though, right now in scoring.
Who's that, Barkov?
We have Connor McDavid with 60, Leon Draisaitl with 50, Patrick Kane with 42.
Oh, yeah, Kane.
Marner, Scheifele, Matthews.
Well,
that's pretty impressive.
He's run and gun in the North, I guess.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. Sorry, did you say in the top 10 or top 5?
Top 6.
Oh, top 6. Okay.
Oh, top 6. Okay.
That's right. Correct me.
Interesting.
Well, it just says, I'm looking, isn't Barkov in top 6?
No, he's not.
Yes, he is. For points or for goals?
For points.
Yeah. He has 37. He's tied with Scheifele.
Ooh.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well. Nope. I don't have him here. I have him tied for 7th at 35.
What? Where are you
How many
looking?
points do you have? I'm looking at Sportsnet.
Oh, I'm looking at NHL.com. Maybe they just played today. NHL.com is pretty quick to update the.
They probably just played
stats.
today. Yeah.
That's it. Then disregard what I
don't
just
even
said.
follow Florida. We're did the Panthers
Florida's
play
doing good, man.
Edit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that I pissed off entire Leaf Nation, I'm gonna try curry back some goodwill with them, and we're gonna do my favorite segment, and that's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We gotta get those views in somehow, and in Toronto, pressure. There's a lot of pressure on the Leafs to perform this year, and early in the season, they were doing quite well. Lately, though, things haven't been going quite as well, but things are looking up. So they have their goalie Anderson. He played against Calgary, and he didn't play quite that well. Then they bring this other guy, Jack Campbell, and he plays phenomenal. And he shuts out the Flames, and they win. But I'm going to ask you guys now, I mean, this has only been 2 games, but, do the Leafs have a goalie controversy? Is Jack Campbell the answer here? That seems to be my thought reading all the Leafs Twitter, is that no one is confident in Anderson right now, but Jack Campbell, he's like a cult hero over there in Toronto. So I'm going to ask resident Toronto Maple Leafs expert Ryan Pilon. Pilon?
There's only a controversy if you don't believe that Campbell should take the starting net. The thing is, I mean, yes, there is a controversy. I don't want to say it's because of Freddie's recent play, though. I know he's been just getting bashed on social media over this latest stretch, and yes, he was terrible, but he was playing through an injury. He really shouldn't have been playing. It was very, very noticeable how slow he was. His side-to-side movement, I could just tell before he even came out and said he was battling through an injury. I could just tell there was something wrong there. He was just noticeably slow going side to side. His reaction was slow as well. And I mean, you got to give him credit for battling through that. I mean, he played because he had to. Jack Campbell was hurt. Michael Hutchinson. I mean, he played admirably through a few starts, but then he let up 2 goals and 3 shots. So that last time he played. So, you can't rely on Hutchinson to carry you. So I think he deserves some credit for playing when he shouldn't have. He knew he wasn't at his best. He's in a contract year, and that's going to hurt his totals as well. So, I mean, he could have been selfish and said, no, I'm not going to play, and it's probably going to hurt his contract next year as well. So I want to give him credit for that. Now, having said that, there is a controversy, or at least I believe Campbell should get a chance at the starter position because of this. Even when Freddie was healthy, he wasn't playing bad, but he was just average. Like, you look at his save percentage, his goals saved above expected, like it was just basically average to maybe a little below average. He wouldn't lose you a game, but he wouldn't win you a game either. Now, that's all the Leafs really needed. They have a very deep team in front of them. That's all they needed, was just some competent goaltending. They just needed steady Freddie to make the saves that he needed to, and they would take care of the rest. Jack Campbell, on the other hand, has been providing phenomenal goaltending. He has a .965 save percentage in his 4 starts, 2 shutouts in his 4 starts. Now, the issue is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's been injured twice. So if he can stay healthy and he can keep up this level of play, he should get the starting position. You give the goal to the best goalie. That's going to help you. Like, if the Leafs can have a goalie who can steal them games or steal them a playoff series, that's huge. That's huge. Like, Freddie Anderson wasn't going to do that, right? Like, he wouldn't lose you a series, but he wasn't going to win you a series either. Like, you would need the forwards and the defense to play really well to win a series, and he would just take care of like what he needed to take care of. If Jack Campbell can do what he's doing consistently, you give him the starting position. So right now, like, he looked pretty healthy. I hope he's feeling okay today. I'm hoping he's going to be able to continue to play. Let Frederik Andersen rest up. Let him get 100% healthy, and then let them battle it out for the number 1 spot. And whoever's the better goalie, that's who you ride into the playoffs. And if Freddie doesn't return to his old form, or if Campbell gets hurt again or something, then maybe we're even looking at a trade for a goalie before the trade deadline.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the soup's looking good. Got to be honest, the soup's hot, and that's when you want to eat it the most.
Well, his rebound control is stellar. Like, that was like, he just swallowed pucks in that game against Calgary. Whereas with Anderson, it was just bouncing here, there, everywhere, right? No second chances. And
now,
then
that
diving save on I can't remember who he saved that.
On Kachuk.
Was it on Kachuk?
Yeah,
that is the type of goaltending they weren't getting from Freddie. It was like any sort of high danger chance that Calgary got went in. Any deflection went in. And I mean, sure, they're good goals. Like, he let him against the first game in Calgary, he let him, I would say, like, 1 weak goal. And then the other 2 were deflections. And then there was that one really great one-timer.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is Campbell made that insane save, right? Whereas with Freddie, that probably went in because he just can't go side to side that well right now. And, deflections, Campbell was swallowing them whole. He was able to stay on top of them. So, he's looking great.
Now, what happens when they both go down? Because it
already happened.
That's a scary thing.
That's the stretch we just went through. Right. That's the 2 wins and how many losses have they had? That's what happened. Is Freddie was hurt and playing hurt, Campbell was out, and they weren't getting goaltending. Like, honestly, except for the final game against Winnipeg in their series and the game against Ottawa, where they just looked gassed and tired. They did play a lot of games in a lot of days. They got outplayed in those games. The rest of the games, they outchanced the opposing team. Mm-hmm. They weren't getting goaltending, and they were always getting out goaltended by Hellebuck or by Demko, by Markstrom.
Right.
They were still playing really good. They were playing just as good as they were against Edmonton when they dominated those 3 games, but they weren't getting stops. And that's been the difference. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. And that's the problem too, is both these guys have been hurt multiple times now. So that's kind of scary, right? And the Leafs just don't have a lot of great goaltending depth in the organization. They do a terrible job at drafting, developing goalies. They haven't developed a starting goaltender since Felix Potvin. They had Tuukka Rask, but they traded him away. They just don't do a great job. And I mean, they made that one trade for the Columbus goalie who I've never heard of before.
Korpisalo.
No, they didn't get Korpisalo. It was like AHL goalie.
I saw that.
I can't remember.
I'm thinking McElhinney
or something like that.
McElhinney?
So I'm not sure how he's going to be.
I don't think it was McElhinney. I think it was another guy.
No, because they had McElhinney, and then
I'll look up his name. I had never heard of him before.
Right?
I had never heard of him before.
It doesn't instill a lot of confidence. But to be fair, Calgary got a guy named Kiprasov that I never heard of before from San Jose, who was the third stringer.
He might be great. You never know.
You just never know.
They made a trade for some more depth goaltending in the AHL. They just don't have a lot of depth. They had great depth. Excuse me. They had Aaron Dell, and then they lost him on waivers. Right? They had to bring in Michael Hutchinson. Now, Michael Hutchinson, I think, has played pretty well for most of his starts, but that last start, that was old Michael Hutchinson. That was Michael Hutchinson of last year, where you're just like, oh God, like I might as well just turn off the TV now. Like, we're not going to win this game. So
I think that's unfair to expect a team to carry 3 to 4 good goalies. Like, it's so hard to even get one starting quality goaltender that if your backup can come in and win a couple of games, that's just gravy. Like, to get a third stringer.
But how many times do you see, a team has both are like, this happens all the time against Toronto. It's like the two goalies are out. They bring in some no name from the AHL, some young guy, and all of a sudden he's just a superstar. Like, why can't that happen for the Leafs? For crying out loud. Like, why does all the horrible goaltending stories happen against the Leafs and not for, and these great stories for the Leafs happen? I just don't get it. But anyways, hopefully Campbell looks great. I'm really hoping he can stay healthy. It is risky having these two, because for some reason this year they're just having some troubles with injuries. But if they can both get healthy, like get Campbell starter with Freddie backup going into the playoffs potentially, looks pretty good.
You mentioned a thing about goaltenders and injuries, and Markstrom was hurt, Mike Smith was hurt to start the year. I have a theory. I don't know how true this is. You guys let me know if I'm out to lunch, games. But could be too many games. But I think players, they're playing away games. They're confined to their hotel room. Like, they're not allowed to go out. They're not allowed to, eat, drink, even like go to the gym. I don't think they're allowed to go to the gym. They're only allowed like practice and home. And, I think that's really like affecting players, and especially goalies, because of the lateral movements, like the core stability. If you're just sitting in a hotel room for 24 to 48 hours, not doing very much because you can't really do very much, and then you're expected to go out there and perform and like do these crazy saves, I think it's really affecting injuries in goaltenders this year. And
they can still warm up in their room. They can still stretch or do yoga or whatever the heck goalies do.
I guess, yeah, but I mean, like, goalies are such creatures of habit, right? Like,
all hockey players are creatures of habit, yeah.
Right, yeah. Like, you go to the rink early.
I would say it has more to do with like the heavy workload. Like, that's a lot of games, right? And especially as a goalie, you're on the ice the entire time.
That's true.
Yeah. And like, if the backup goes down, now all of a sudden the starter's playing way more games than the team had originally planned to, and vice versa. So I don't know. Maybe that's what's happening.
Is David Ayer available? I mean, you're mentioning goaltending struggles. What's he up to these days?
He can clean the ice
while
he's waiting in the defensive zone while the Leafs are on offense.
He's busy with Disney right now, making the Disney movie for that whole story.
Angels in the Crease or something they'll do. I don't know what the movie will be. Before we get off the Leafs, one thing I want to mention, and Adam, you can chime in on this, or Elon. Before I mentioned when the Leafs were way ahead in the standings, I said that this is bad. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and the Leafs are too far ahead. They won't be battle tested. Now that they've come back down to the pack and they're close to Edmonton and Winnipeg, they're going to have to battle to win that number 1 seed again. And, they're not even that far away from Vancouver, could conceivably go on a run, and, Toronto may not even make the playoffs. Probably won't happen, but it's certainly a possibility, then more of a possibility than it was 2 weeks ago. Do you think the slide has actually, in hindsight, benefited the Leafs? Because going into the end of the season, they're going to play meaningful hockey until the last game of the year now because of this.
I was actually thinking that when they went on the slide and Edmonton and Winnipeg caught up, I was like, oh, they hurt Sanjay. They decided to lose some games to make it close because they knew Sanjay was right. The team needs to go through trials and tribulations and controversy and all that stuff, and they need to be able to find within themselves to turn things around. And I'm just happy this is happening now and not at the end of the season or in the playoffs.
And that's exactly what I thought with the Oilers in terms of losing those 3 to the Leafs. Really, I wasn't too worried. They lost 3 in a row. Yeah. Lose them now, because if you meet them in the playoffs, that just adds like fuel to the fire. And I think facing that adversity now is a good thing for teams, because it gives them the strength and the confidence to work back up and find that piece that they need to face that adversity and, ultimately play a better game.
Yeah, you look at all the Cup winners, most of them have gone through some sort of cold streak at some point in the season, right?
Yeah.
And it generally makes them a better team in the end. Like, they have to look within, they have to come together as a team, they have to dig deep and figure out a way to turn things around, right? Yeah. And like you said, Adam, deal with adversity. And you're going to be going through adversity in the playoffs. There's going to be some times where you're exhausted or you're frustrated or whatever, and you've got to figure out a way to turn things around. It's better to figure that out in the regular season than the playoffs.
Yeah, very true.
And like you said, now they can't coast, right? So now they can't just sit back and, play their third and fourth line all the time and take things easy and, sip some martinis and head into the playoffs.
Well, you know what?
Easy breezy.
Here's where I was thinking. VC got picked up on waivers. Toronto will not have Edmonton's number any longer. VC was the Achilles heel.
There you go.
Now we got Galchenyuk, man. You watch out for Galchenyuk when he comes when we play
we've
Edmonton.
Heard that one before. Woohoo! Yakupov draft.
Is that like the worst draft in NHL history? Like, none of the players. It's got to be up there. Like, none of those players in the top 100. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but none of them from certainly the top 5.
What year was that?
That must have been 2013. I'm gonna guess. Yeah, that's a rough draft.
I would
2012.
And that's like the thing is, Galchenyuk was supposed to be such a good player. You saw in Montreal they tried him at a couple different places. He was okay, and then he went to Arizona, and you're like, this is maybe what he needed. And then he went to didn't work out there. Went to Pittsburgh. Like, you've got 2 guys that you can probably play with in Pittsburgh, and still nothing.
There were some good players in that draft. They just weren't taken at the start, right? So when Yakupov, Ryan Murray, Alex Galchenyuk, Griffin Reinhart, but then Morgan Rielly was taken at 5th.
That's your best player right there in that draft.
Hampus Lindholm at 6. Matt Dumba was at 7.
He's a good player,
Jacob Trouba was taken at 9. Some good defensemen.
Good,
Philip Forsberg was taken at 11th.
Steal.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Thomas Hurdle taken at 17th. Tuvo Teravainen was taken at 18. Andre Vasilevsky was taken at 19. So there's some decent players in there for sure. But later on, like the top 4 was just brutal.
That's it. And thank God the Oilers had a number of first-round draft picks in other drafts because, Yakupov, Hall, Nuge, Connor. Oh, thank God.
Just had a line of
the reason that they're changing the rules for the draft is because of the Edmonton Oilers.
Hey, luck is luck.
Rule. Thanks a lot. You just come in, take the system, abuse it, and then leave it for everyone else. I appreciate that.
I remember when they were revealing the cards on TSN, or was it Sportsnet? Yeah. It was Sportsnet, revealing the cards for the Connor McDavid draft, and Bill Daly just looking down and going, "You have a winner." And, I yelled. I was holding my son Atticus, and he was a baby at the time, and he started crying. I was like, "Yeah, whoa, sorry."
I remember that because I remember Calgary was in the playoffs, and I was like, we got like our first playoff win since 2004, and I was like, of course, like Edmonton would just take the Thunder away, like when we're having a good surprise year.
You know what's crazy is they drafted Taylor Hall in 2010. That's so long ago. It feels like yesterday. But like I remember in 2010, I was like, wow, like the Oilers are going to be like cup champions in like 5 years.
Isn't that what Ron McLean said? He said, "Give me a glass of wine, and Edmonton, will be."
Oh God, they had Hall, they had Nugent Hopkins.
No, he said that
Eberle, they had Yakupov, and I'm like, wow, this team is going to be so good. Like 2005, they're going to be dominant.
He said that after they drafted McDavid, though.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he said that. He said the Oilers will win the cup in 5 years.
Right.
Has it been 5 years yet? Can I make fun of Ron McLean yet?
Well, let's see.
Like,
I think
it's been 6 years.
This might be the fifth.
McDavid. I think this is the 6th year since McDavid was drafted.
It very well could be.
Feels like 100.
But do we count the shortened season?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We spoke earlier on the program about records that'll never. 6th year? Okay.
It's his 6th.
So.
Yeah. But then you've got the 45 game season. I don't really count that.
I do. He played the entire playoffs at home.
He'll have a cup this year. We'll have a cup this year.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. He's liking his team. They are looking good. They looked fast last night.
Yeah. They look way better than they have this year. Honestly, ever since the loss to Toronto, it looks like they're really starting to click. Honest to God, they're getting contribution throughout the lineup.
That's the big difference.
Big time.
Their secondary scoring.
Not just like our forward lines, our defense. Like
Darnell Nurse is having a Norris-worthy season, man.
And did you watch my Willie Weighs In?
I
did. Norris, and
Tyson Berry's turned it around. He's leading the league in points for defensemen. Pugliarvi's come on. I mean, you still have some disappointments, but like overall, you're getting a lot more contributions throughout the lineup.
Oh yeah,
like you guys are actually scoring 5-on-5 now instead of just the power play, which is huge. And then Mike Smith has been phenomenal since coming back. So I mean,
and Koskinen.
Edmonton's still not very good defensively, but offensively, they're just a juggernaut.
No, I would argue that they've been much better defensively as well.
They've been pretty good.
They let up oh God, I gotta get away from my microphone. They let up a lot of chances still, but
Smith's been covering a lot.
Smith needs
to stay in his
clearing up any of those concerns or any of those he's clearing up those issues. So,
but so is Koskinen. Koskinen won the game before in Winnipeg. He played unreal. Like he's playing really great hockey, but he's just not getting the opportunity because
not quite to the level of Smith, but
yes, he is. Watch his last couple games.
Unreal.
Oh, maybe the
Smith's
last couple.
playing unreal.
I'm just saying overall the season, but maybe the last couple he's been on a heater.
Can he pass his puck to the defenseman like Mike Smith? I mean, that's all I heard about.
But like, oh my God, Mike Smith, just like the thing that scares me and aggravates me about Mike Smith is the fact that he'll come out of his net when there's a guy bearing down on him. And you're like, just leave the puck. Just leave the puck. Case in point, Winnipeg last night. He got out of his net. Guys were bearing down on him. They got the puck out front. It was an easy goal, but he managed to like just barely snag it as he was getting back in the net.
So Koskinen,
I saw that. Yeah, you sent that. Yeah.
Koskinen has a .903 save percentage. So I mean, it's not bad. It's probably a little below average, but Mike Smith has a .922, which is elite.
Yeah. Is that sustainable though? Like, can he do that for the whole year? Because it's a shortened season, but there's a lot of games.
Well, he's played 16 games. It's not like small number.
I think they lean on him too much. I think you need to give Koskinen a couple more starts.
He's 39 years old, though.
He is. He's older. He's a year older than me.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to keep that up. 39 years old, but who knows? Marc-Andre Fleury is having the best season of his life, and
he's 43. I'm just kidding.
So.
He's not.
He's not. But
I will say, Mike Smith, when he was with Calgary and they made that not run, but when they made the playoffs and they played Colorado, Mike Smith was unbelievable for Calgary. Like he was the best player all 5 of those games, and he could just last year he didn't really
No, last
play
year
that
was
well in the
bad.
playoffs.
He was bad last year.
But it could have just been like, older goalie. He was off for so long. It took him a little bit longer to get his game back.
Yep.
Goalies are just so funny too, though, right? Like, it's very rare you find a goalie who's consistently good every year. Like, a lot of times you find goalies who are like, oh, he's great this year, then he's okay this year, and then he has a bad year, and then he's a great year.
Mm-hmm.
They're unpredictable most of the time. If you can find a predictable goalie who's always solid, then good on you.
I think players just have more information than they did in the past. Like, you could probably YouTube or, your trainer or your team would have every goal scored on any goalie in the NHL, right? Like any starting goalie.
Oh, yeah.
And then you could like break down the data and be like, okay, well, 45% of goals on Mike Smith are, low blocker. And then when you're going in, you're like, okay, I know where to shoot, go low blocker. I just made that up. I don't know if that's true.
That was Koskinen. Koskinen's a good example. Koskinen on his glove hand, first year in the league, that was where every team was targeting. That was his weak point. He's cleaned that up.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's more, and it goes both ways. Like, goalies have more in shooters. So maybe, shooters get ahead of the goalie. Goalie has an off year. Goalie gets a little bit more data on the shooters. Like, okay, Matthews likes to shoot high glove because he's fancy, and Marner likes to triple deke like that. So it's you can read the shooters as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of shooters, Mika Zibanejad of the New York Rangers. You mentioned this earlier, but he put up 6 points in one period, and the Rangers won 9-0 over the Flyers. And even more impressive than that was their coaches were out due to COVID protocols. I think
Who
they
needs
were in
coaches?
Close contact with someone. Right? Like,
just let us play,
if I'm
man.
the AHL coach, I'm kind of like
I could just see the GM sitting down with the coaches after, like, or the owners being like, so what do you do? Why do we need you?
Yeah.
Just stand there and keep your mouth shut.
The coach is probably just watching that, like, oh God, oh no.
Yeah. I think the coach probably at like 4-0 was like, okay, like, go for the team. And then after he's like, okay, Philly, like, pick it up here. Like, I don't want to look bad. Like, come on now. Like, maybe put out the backup or something. Cause that's
well, especially the Rangers who have not had a good year, right? People were kind of expecting maybe they'd be a surprise. Well, I don't know, surprise.
I don't know. You got Panarin, you got Zibanejad, like,
and then like you had
Lafreniere,
Kakinen. No,
yeah, Capo.
I'm saying his name wrong. I know I am.
Capo Keiko.
Anyways, you had him, and then you had so you had like all these Lafreniere, right? So people are expecting big things from the Rangers. I wasn't personally expecting them to make the playoffs, but a lot of people were saying, well, they might be good enough this year to get in. So, but they have not had a good year. So for them to all of a sudden put a beating on the Flyers like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. What's the highest scoring game that you remember watching as a fan? Could be your team, could be another team. Like, I didn't watch that game. So like, what, do you have any memories of like a 9-4
remember
game?
the Penguins Flyers series in the playoffs? Like, every game was high scoring. I don't remember what the actual totals were, but like every game was like 80s hockey. It was high scoring. There were fights. It was the most fun hockey I've seen in a long time. And Giroux and Crosby just hated each other.
That was good.
That series was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How about you, Adam?
There was one Edmonton game. I can't remember who they played, but the opponent had 9 points, and it was in kind of the dark years. And I remember
was that Buffalo?
It might have been. And the fans were chanting, "We want 10. We want 10 in Edmonton." Like, oh,
that's rough.
Yeah.
I wonder if Zibanejad, there's no coach on. I was going to say, he's probably telling his coach, just put him back out there, coach. Let me get the record, right? Let me pass Daryl Sittler. There's no coach.
Right.
So I guess just as a team, they collectively said, okay, guys, let's calm down here. Man, why wouldn't you push for that? You just needed 4 more points. Just 4 more.
Know, but I think Philly's a tough team, right? And they're a prideful team. So if you put that first power play unit in the third, or put Zibanejad out there to run up the score to 12-13, they had an off game, but like down the year, when you play them later, they'll probably punch your face in for doing that, right? So you gotta like. So
I was going to say, speaking of Philly, like, they have been disappointing this year.
Yeah.
And it's their goaltending, man. Their goaltending is coming to bite them in the butt again. Like, who would have thought that? Carter Hart had such a great start to his career and just having a bad year this year. And Brian Elliott, not good
is that
either.
Attributed to the defense, right?
Philly's always had like bad goaltending.
An 875 save percentage, it'd have to be a really bad defense. And I don't think their defense is quite that bad. Like, I think he's just struggling with his confidence.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young goalie. He could figure
He's only
it
22. Like, I'm not saying he's not going to be a good goalie, but like, God, Philly hasn't had a great goaltender since Hextall, probably.
Yeah.
And was that the 80s, right? And ever since then, they've just had these like okay goalies.
They had Garth Snow when he had Arizona, the pads that took up the whole net. Do you remember that in '97 when they made the Cup run? Or was it '97 or '98 when Garth Snow had the pads that
they went to the Cup final?
Yeah, it was like literally the entire front of the net was covered with his pads. Like, it was so ridiculous. I forgot about
Garth Snow. Yeah, that's right.
That was so bad.
Yeah, but it's just been their Achilles heel. They just can't ever seem to find a goalie, and they finally had one in Carter Hart, and for some reason this year it's just not going his way.
Yeah, I mean,
whether it's the defense or whether it's him.
That'll happen. We're talking about Philly. They're like always having goaltending issues. There was an article in The Athletic, and I don't remember who wrote it. I can't remember. I think Pilon, you sent it to me, but they were debating which fan bases had it worse. Was it the Vancouver Canucks or the Buffalo Sabres? And I thought it'd be fun here if we could each, there's 3 fan bases, Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton. We could debate as to which fan base between the 3 of us has had it the roughest. Like, has it been the hardest being a Flames, Leafs? I shouldn't even include you, Adam, being an Oilers fan. Like, shit, man, you guys have 5 Stanley Cups. You've had Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid. Like, you shouldn't even get a chance at the podium to say you've had it rough being an Oilers fan.
There were 12 years, though.
I'll give you a chance.
Okay,
Adam,
you start. Why is it the worst being an Oilers fan?
It was the worst over the last 12 years. It was very dark. Not making the playoffs for that time. Really contemplating your dedication to a fan and a fan base that, is looked at like a cartoon with Bigfoot in that Kenny hates. I honestly, it was really difficult in that 12 years to be an Oilers fan and hard to watch at times because you'd get so much hope and then like there'd be like a push for the playoffs, but it was never there. And I can't honestly complain. There's 5 cups. There's 83, 84, 86, 87, and 90. Like,
how many of those cups do you actually remember?
No 86.
Did I get that wrong? 87, 88.
Yeah.
How many of those cups do you actually remember, Adam?
I remember. Well, I was born in 82, so I definitely remember 83.
That's what I'm asking. Did you actually witness an Oiler team winning the cup?
I would say 90. I did for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have seen him win a Stanley Cup and be really good, but then you did have to live through them trading Gretzky, right? Like that's
Did you cry?
No, because I wasn't even that I wasn't that into hockey at that point in time, really, right? So it was like my dad and like other adults around, and you'd be like, whatever. And I was more into basketball at that time, and my team was the Indiana Pacers, and I really liked the Bulls, but I loved Reggie Miller.
Oh yeah,
that push off Jordan, and he nailed that clutch 3, and I was like, Reggie, right? And if you watch the last stand, that was the team that really scared the Bulls. Like Michael Jordan was like, if there was a team that was going to beat us, it was the Indiana Pacers that year.
Yeah,
but that's besides the point. That's being
your
that
team's
fan,
so good that you can talk about basketball.
Being the Indiana Pacers fan over that because they hadn't won a championship was really difficult. Unless they played the Knicks.
I feel so bad for you.
Yeah. Right? Spike Lee.
And enough of you, okay? You had like Gretzky, okay? You had how many? We're talking about individual awards. Like Edmonton has probably won more individual awards as a franchise since 1980 than maybe Pittsburgh would be the only other one that would be a contender, but even then,
you
I
look
would
at
vote it.
you look at Pittsburgh.
That's
exactly.
a really great
it's Pittsburgh
example.
and Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
spoiled with talent. Spoiled with talent.
They earned it.
No, you just won a lottery. Both of you just won a lottery.
Oh, so good.
All right, Pilon. So let's get to some real heartbreak.
I don't want to
here.
talk about the Leafs, so let's talk about the Raptors. Basketball's awesome. Raptors just won a championship. It was great. No, obviously I'm going to win this debate. Holy crap. Okay, so
Not even close.
the Leafs have not won a cup since 1967. I hear it all the time from Adam and Barron. It's the longest stretch in the NHL. Once the St. Louis won their cup, they were tied. Now the Leafs are alone in the longest stretch without a cup. They haven't even been to a final since 67. They've gone to a conference final a few times, but that's about it. They've never won a President's Trophy, at least not since the original six were done.
You sound so distraught.
Hey, man, I have been through
Trophy.
more than you can ever imagine. And the fact that I'm still a Leafs fan shows how hardcore of a Leafs fan I am. Yeah. Let's see, not a lot of individual hardware either. Gilmore won the Selke in 93 and was second in Hart voting, and Matthews won a Calder, and last year the Lady Byng. That's been it for individual hardware. And really, until Shanahan took over, they didn't put a lot of stock in drafting, developing players. That's been the biggest issue. They've continually traded away draft picks and prospects, and they missed out on players like Scott Niedermayer, Roberto Luongo, Tyler Seguin, Dougie Hamilton, Tuukka Rask. These are all players that could have been a Leaf, but they ended up trading them usually for over-the-hill players that didn't really help at all. Great management. And then lastly, there's just those embarrassing moments. Those moments that only happen to the Leafs, it feels like. You got the 18-wheeler going off the cliff. You got the collapse against the Bruins in the third period of Game 7 in the playoffs. And, of course, you've got them losing to a Zamboni driver, David Ayres. And not only did I have to live through that, I'm going to have to relive through it on the big screen because Disney's making a damn movie of the stupid game. Like, how the hell are you making a movie out of David Ayres?
Who's going to play Austin Matthews in that movie?
He's in the freaking Hall of Fame because he beat the Leafs. That's going to be enshrined forever. I don't even want to go back to the Hall of Fame because I'm going to see that damn jersey and stick of his.
I've got one more piece of.
Oh yeah, just bring it. Just bring it.
Phil Kessel eating hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup he won in Pittsburgh.
He won. Tyler Bozak has won the cup since he left. Alex Steen won the cup after he left. It goes on and on. Lanny McDonald won the cup in Calgary. It's just how it goes with this team. You have the Muskoka Five who refused to be traded away. And then you're like, okay, well, Sundin, you're going to retire a Leaf. Okay, I respect that. No, he doesn't retire a Leaf. He goes to Vancouver and then he beats you in a shootout. Like, that's just the stuff that happens to the Leafs all the time. So that is why, as a Leaf fan, we have it the worst. Top that, Sanjay.
It's a lot of
That's pretty good, but I could do better.
Okay.
Let's start. Okay, so first off, I've been a Flames fan. I've been on, Flames fan for a while, since 2002. I've always been a fan before then, but my fandom kind of wavered a bit. So how about this? Okay, your biggest rival, the Edmonton Oilers, up north, 300 clicks, have Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Grant Fuhr, Yuri Curry, Glenn Anderson, some of the greatest hockey players to ever play. And you finally beat them, 1986. You win, and you're like, yes, we beat them. And you had to play Montreal in the Stanley Cup Finals, and you lose in 5. And then you're like, okay, fine. All those years of torment of losing to Edmonton, and then you finally win in 1989. You win the Stanley Cup. And that team is one of the greatest teams of all time. You talk about like the individual talent on that team. Very few teams can compete with that 1989 team. And you're like, except for the Oilers, right? Like, that would have been a good match if they still had Gretzky. The 89 Flames and the Oilers, if they kept Gretzky, that would have been a good match. So you're like, man, we've climbed the mountain. The first is always the hardest to get. we are the new dynasty in the NHL. Like, we are going to be legit Stanley Cup contenders for years to come. Throughout 1989 to 2003, the Flames did not win a single playoff series. They made the playoffs, and they would finish high as like the top seed, and they would go out in 7 in heartbreaking fashion. Let me take you back to 1994, Pavel Bure, overtime in the Saddle Dome, breakaway, he scores on Mike Vernon, we're out. And you look at that team, and you're like, oh my God, that team was stacked. Like, that 1994 team should have been in there for Stanley Cup. Like, it would have been like them. Vancouver made it to Game 7 of the Cup final. If Calgary had won that, there was a legit possibility they could have won the Stanley Cup that year. You know, like, they had that team. 1995, they played San Jose Sharks. And this isn't the San Jose Sharks that we're used to of a couple of years ago. This is like barely expansion San Jose Sharks that just make it in. We beat the San Jose Sharks. I can't remember the final score. It was like 12-1 one game in the series. Okay, you beat a team 12, you score 12 goals to 10 goals on a team in a playoff series, and you don't win that playoff series? Who does that? Who does that? The Calgary Flames. And you talk about that 1989 team. Think of all the players that got traded away from there. Okay, Håkan Lube, 50-goal scorer, one of the greatest Swedes. He says, you know what? I want to go home to Sweden. I want to be with my family. Very respectable. He leaves. Lanny McDonald retires. They trade away Joe Nundyk. They trade away Al McInnes. They trade away Theoren Fleury. They trade away Mike Vernon. They trade away Gary Suter. They trade away Joe Mullen. They traded all those players away. And who did they get for it? Like, yeah, they got a Ginla from Nundyk, but everyone else, it was just a massive downgrade. Like, just a massive downgrade from those players. And you're like, okay, well, maybe those players couldn't have done it. Mike Vernon goes on to win the Stanley Cup with Detroit. Joe Nundyk goes on to win the Stanley Cup with Dallas and New Jersey Devils. Joe Mullen goes on, and he has a Hall of Fame career, and he wins the Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh. All these players that leave Calgary win the Stanley Cup. And you're like, okay, you go through that, and 2004 happens, and you make the Stanley Cup Finals, and it's a miracle run. And it's Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. It's a tie game in the third period in Calgary. And Martin Gilina scores a goal. The puck crosses the line, and he scores a goal, and the NHL does not count it. And the Flames lose in double overtime, and then they lose in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Do you know what's worse than not going to the dance? Going to the dance with a girl, and then she leaves with, like, another guy. Like, I would rather just stay at home. Like, that, you lose Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and, like, that sticks with you. But you know what? I was, like, kind of hopeful, because I'm like, okay, Calgary's back. We have Iginla. We have Kiprusoff. We have this dynamic team. They would go another almost 10 years before winning another playoff series, okay? Ginla was legit one of the best players in the league. Miga Kiprusoff was one of the best goalies in the league. Dion Phaneuf was one of the best defensemen in the league. And you don't win a playoff series with that core? Who does that but Calgary? We are cursed when it comes to the playoffs. You talk about, Leafs, at least the Leafs have cup runs, or not cup runs, but playoff runs. You know what I mean? Like, at least they win a playoff series here and there. They're always in it. They make it to the third round. They make it to the second round. Calgary just, we have like 2 years where we did something, okay, maybe like 4 years, but you know what I mean? Like, at least the Leafs were good. Like, in the 90s, they were good. Calgary was not winning a playoff series. So, okay, 1967, that's a long time. Granted that, but 1989, I don't remember that. It might as well have been 1967. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember that. So I think Calgary, has it. And to top it off, you're finally doing good. And then that team up north that, is always shit in the bed for a decade. Yeah, the NHL is like, hey, you win a draft lottery. Here's Connor McDavid. And the cycle starts again. Of hating the team up north. So, at least like with Toronto, it's not like Ottawa's winning Stanley Cups 4 or 5 times. It's not, your provincial rival is not winning Stanley Cups. Our provincial rival is winning it, and
well, the Montreal Canadiens, I would say, is the Leafs' biggest rival, and they've won a fair number of cups.
Fair enough. So we won the Western Conference 2 years ago, and we won 1 playoff game. We were the number 1 seed in the West, and we won 1 playoff game. Do you know how heartbreaking that was? I was going into that playoffs. I was like, all right, like this is going to be a long, deep run. We steamrolled everyone in the West in the regular season. Colorado, please, we beat these chumps in the regular season. Win the first game and lose 4 straight. First time ever they lost 4 straight that year. Had to be in the playoffs because it's Calgary. We just playoffs and us are like oil and water. We just do not get along.
And oil goes on top of water, and that's why they win cups.
But oil burns when you flick it on fire.
Right.
Well, let us know on Twitter
And then a leaf
if you're a fan
falls in the fire and dissolves.
just dissolves. Yeah.
So I
Oh
win.
my God.
Let us know on Twitter if you're on YouTube if you're watching this. Calgary, Toronto. I'm not including Edmonton because they don't get a say in this. I'm sorry, Adam.
Who's had it worse? Yeah.
Yeah, or if you're a fan of someone else, if you're a Blue Jackets fan or a Panthers fan, you might have had it pretty bad. I'm pretty sure you
Arizona?
have.
Maybe Arizona,
Buffalo.
yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo fans, let us know. Let us know because you've had some tales of woe to weave. So let us know. Before we end this, I'm just going to do one quick segment, and this will be a quick one, but I'm going to name some players, and you tell me if they belong in the Hall of Fame or not, okay? Start off with one. Patrick Marleau, going to set the NHL games record, but, never won any major individual awards, never won a Stanley Cup, but he's going to set the record for most games played. Would you put him in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Yes, but not first ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Corey Perry won a Hart Trophy, Stanley Cup, gold medalist.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, probably, but again, probably not first ballot.
But
Really?
I think he gets in over Marleau quicker.
Yeah,
Oh,
I would
sure.
agree. I would agree. I kind of forget how good he was just because he just hasn't been for a while. So it's the memory has faded about how good he actually was back in the day. But
yeah, I mean, he won the Hart Trophy. You look at
He
that
did.
2010 team.
Yeah.
He was on a line with Getzlav, and I can't remember who was the third guy, but they were just wrecking balls.
and international
It was,
play as well, right? He won
it was
gold
Dustin
medals and
Penner.
everything. So
Dustin
he'll get
Penner.
in there.
Oh yeah,
Dustin
for the
Penner.
Ducks. Yeah. That was a good one. That was a good move by Edmonton to pick him up. So thank you. Okay, Carey Price.
Yeah, he's a late.
He'll get
He's
in
a
there.
late entry though. It's
Really?
like Luongo. It's like
Roberto
Luongo. It's exactly like Luongo.
he won the Hart
Will
Trophy,
Luongo
didn't
get
he?
in though?
Didn't
I
Carey
think
Price win a
Luongo
Hart as
gets
well?
in. Yeah, look,
I-
because it includes international hockey. Look at their
Yeah.
resume for international
Yeah,
hockey.
he's
too,
won
right?
gold medals.
Yeah,
He's
he's never won a
been
cup?
always considered like the best goalie in the league.
Yeah.
He's won Vezinas, and like I said, I believe he won the Hart as well.
I don't know if he did. That's
I'll look it up. I thought he won
maybe
the
he
Hart.
did. Maybe he did. That he could have. Because like goalies are pretty hard. Like Curtis Joseph isn't in the Hall of Fame, and he's like 5th all time in wins.
he should be in.
Yeah, he won the Hart.
Wow, really?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, you could have won $10 off me. So
One sec here.
really, because like Curtis Joseph should be in. And
He
he's
also
not even-
won the 10th Lindsay. He won 4 awards. Which year was this? 2015. He won 4 awards that year.
Right.
Wow.
Who's next on the list?
Okay. How about Jason Spezza?
No.
Yeah, he's a short nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not. He was
Give
really
me-
good with Ottawa, though.
Great
Really
career.
good.
Great career, but
Really good. But there's a lot of good players who aren't in.
Daniel Alfredson isn't in for some reason. Would you put him in?
Yeah, I put Alfredson
yeah,
in.
I put Alfredson in.
100%. The fact that he's not in is kind of a joke, in my opinion. Name one player currently not in the Hall of Fame that you think should be in.
I'm going to go with this guy. He's 32nd all time in points. He has 1,327. Every single player above him is in the Hall of Fame except for Thornton and Yager because they can't be yet. And yet he's like rarely ever mentioned, and that's Pierre Turjon. Pierre Turjon. He was an over a point per game player throughout his entire career. He was part of the 500 goal club. Yeah, I mean, he didn't win any Stanley Cup rings, and that's probably not a lot of individual hard work either. I think that's kind of what's holding him back. But I mean, he was consistently one of the best players or the best player on his team for years and years. And like when you have that many points and everyone else above you is in the Hall of Fame, you should be too.
Fair enough. I agree. Was he ever like top 10 points though, like in a season or anything like that?
I'd have to look that up, but just in terms of all-time points, he's right up there. Yeah.
I'm going to say Kevin Lowe. 6 Stanley Cups.
He's getting in this year though.
Is he?
Yeah. He made the didn't he? Yeah,
no, there's no Hockey Hall of Fame this year.
Right, but like he's going to be in the next one with like a Ginla.
Oh, good.
Class.
Good. Yeah, that was
Did they already announced the winners for next year's Hall of Fame?
I think I could be mistaken, but I think they canceled it. Like I think it's just like this year.
No, they canceled it for this year, but it the way you were saying it sounded like he was actually already named to the Hall of Fame for next year.
Yeah. So he was like, it was him, Aginla, and I can't remember the other players.
It's Ken Holland, Marian Hossa, Aginla, Lowe, St. Pierre, and Wilson.
Right.
That's a strong
St. Pierre?
Yes, female Canadian hockey player.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that they already named winners.
I have worked a Hockey Hall of Fame ceremony.
That's right. You used to work at the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Igor Larionov was
the professor.
Put in. Yeah, and I got to block away for Mark Messier.
That'd be such a cool job.
Did he throw an elbow at you?
My favorite. No.
You probably tried to.
No, I saw Pat Quinn, Ted Lindsay, like all these guys were like coming around because I was working at the post ceremony induction, which is where they do their speeches down in the actual gallery, the Hall of Fame. It was kind of cool.
Is that how you got your goalie skills, Adam? Was by playing that virtual goalie game that they have at the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, no, I worked at I worked at the store, the
merchandise store,
the gift shop or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, which was amazing.
Cool.
Like just, I got like really great discounts on jerseys. So like, I remember coming home and we got like 50% off or something like that, tickets for purchases. And I was like, Baron, what do you want?
Thanks for calling me, man. Like, holy shit.
It was when I lived in Toronto, and Baron was a huge like support for me because I was like, I don't know what to do. And like Baron's like, I'm sending you money, get me a Leafs jersey. And yeah.
Wait, a Leafs jersey?
No, I got him an Oilers jersey. So.
Oh, it sounds like you said get him.
It was an Oilers jersey because he got another.
Baron's
Leafs.
a closet Leaf fan.
No, he did get a Leafs jersey, but it was Ian because his roommate was Ian at the time.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Baron secretly loves the Leafs. Deep down, he does. He just doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah. I'll make a case for one of my Flames here. I think there's 3 Flames that are criminally not in the Hall of Fame. Theo Fleury, Gary Suter, but the case I can make best is Mike Vernon. How this guy is not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. You talk about Stanley Cups. This guy's won 2 Stanley Cups. You talk about doing it in the playoffs. 1986, Wayne Gretzky had his best year ever. 215 points. Wayne freaking Gretzky, best season ever, but he didn't win the Stanley Cup. Do you know why? A rookie goalie named Mike Vernon and the Calgary Flames beat him in 7 games. How is that? If he just retired after that, he should be in the Hall of Fame. The fact that he continued on and beat Patrick Waugh, his only Stanley Cup Finals loss in Montreal, and the Flames won the Stanley Cup. Then he goes to Detroit, and Detroit hadn't won a Stanley Cup in 50 years or whatever. He wins the Stanley Cup, and he wins the Conn Smythe. With the team, look at that team. They had Fedorov, they had Yzerman, they had Igor
That team is
Larionov.
ridiculous. That whole team is Hall of Famers.
Yeah, a team of all Hall of Famers, and he wins the Conn Smythe. You don't think that's a big contribution?
He won the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, he's like top. I think he's 16th all time in wins as a goalie. So
and
you look at his numbers.
Wasn't he the backup to Osgood?
I think
at
he
first,
was the
and then he took over in the playoffs.
Started. Yeah. And
right? Is that what happened?
I think so, because I think Osgood was the guy. Because in '96, Osgood lost to the Avs, and then they got Mike Vernon, and then Vernon started. started in the playoffs, and they ended up winning the Stanley Cup. And I mean, how is this guy 16th in wins, goals against average? Yeah, okay, he played in the 80s a lot. Like, look at him. Look at how small he was in the net in the 80s. And you talk about 89, that team was stacked, but they wouldn't have even beat Vancouver if he didn't stand on his head in Game 7 overtime of the first round. Vancouver had like 3 or 4 insane chances that he stoned them all. This is so egregious that Mike Vernon is not in the Hall of Fame. It's laughable at this point. Like, this guy is one of the winningest goalies. He's won Stanley Cups. He's won everything. Get this guy in the Hall of Fame. Like, this is ridiculous. Come on. Like, I may be a Flames homer here, but I think like Red Wings fans would agree with me. I think Flames fans would agree with me. Yeah, he had some, he had a playoff loss here or there, but you can't blame everything on him. He more than made up for it winning Stanley Cup. So in my mind, I think it's just laughable that he's not in it. So 16th in wins. Do you know who's 16th most goals in the NHL all time? Joe Sakic and Jarome Iginla. Those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers, and rightfully so. 16th in wins, I think, should get you in there. If only 15 other goalies have won more, please. That's just
there's a lot of good players not in the Hall of Fame. That's for sure.
Yeah,
and some that I'm just shocked that they're not, but I'm sure they'll get in eventually.
I hope so. Because at the end of the day, like, it would be nice to see these players get in, while they're still, young and in good health. It would really be sad to see some of these players get in when they're like 80 years old, and you can't really enjoy it as like a player nowadays. That's like an Iginla or someone that's young, right? So hopefully these players get in some of these years coming up. I think all 3 candidates were good. I can't remember who Adam said low, but he's in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't. So I hopefully Turjon and Vernon make it one of these years, because I think
should happen.
I think they're both. Yeah.
Theo too, to be honest. Like Theo was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Right? Like I think the Flames radio announcer Peter Marr was talking about it, and he was saying like Theo was like one of the best 5 forwards in the league, and like for his size.
I have a feeling that's political.
I think it is, but like I think they need to realize like Theo's a survivor, man. Like, he went through shit that we can't even imagine, and for him to put up the numbers that he did and play in the NHL, that should be commended. And like in today's day and age, that should be celebrated, because honestly, he's a champion of like sexual abuse survivors, and he's been through a lot, and I think he deserves to be in a Hall of Fame just as much as any other players in that era. He's won Stanley Cups, gold medals.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
So get Theo in there too. It should be an all Flames class.
Like, it was like all Leafs that one year.
Who was it? Was it like
it was Sundin and Eddie and I can't remember who else. I think there's like 3 Leafs that were inducted that year.
So you can't be that bad being a Leafs fan. You guys got Hall of Fame people.
Oh yeah, we got lots of Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And technically David Ayres, because he technically works for the Leafs, so he's our latest one in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, God.
That must have been awkward coming into the rink the next day, eh? Like,
yeah,
your boss.
no doubt.
Well, if you're listening, let us know who else. Who do you think should be in the Hall of Fame? Do you think Theo, Mikey Vernon, or Pierre Turjon should be in, or is there someone else that we forgot that's not in there right now, like Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk? Let us know. Send us a comment, like, subscribe on this YouTube channel. I don't really know how Baron really wraps these up. He's always so tidy with his wrappings at the end. Yeah. So I guess for Delayed Offside, I'm Sanjay.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Ryan.
Thank you for watching Delayed Offside.